you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. Chris Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. The Fire and Lady sings, and that makes it official. So welcome to the big show. We certainly appreciate it. As always, for 20 years and 16 years and 2,000 episodes, we've been bringing you the most smartest people, the brilliant minds, their wonderful stories of life that give you insights, expand your mind, and just make you a better person as a whole. And if not, or else. I don't know what that means. Go back and watch the video again if you don't get it. Anyway, guys, refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, and all those crazy places on the internet. Today, we have an amazing young lady on the show with us today. She's the author of the book, Out of Darkness into Light, Dramatic Saga in Orthodox Highlands of Ethiopia. Lauralee Lindholm joins us on the show with us today. We'll be talking to her about her amazing book and insights and what she's done through the course of her life that's just an amazing experience. Lauralee and her husband served as missionaries in Africa for 18 years. They are part of a community development team in the remote highlands of Ethiopia, a land that time had forgotten. When they taught the Bible in their native Amharic language, is it Amharic?
Amharic.
There we go, Amharic language, and lives started to change there. She witnessed a spiritual battle, much like the book of Acts in the Bible. They had to leave when communism took over, and Lauralee became a bilingual school teacher for 18 years. On retirement in 2006, they began a bookstore in their house staffed by volunteers filled with donated books and magazines. Heart for Ethiopia Bookstore has sent $1.6 million to Ethiopia for development work such as schooling for children and literacy for women. The work they've done is part of 50 years ago when they first went there, has resulted in 350 churches across Ethiopia today. Welcome to the show, Lauralee. How are you?
I'm fine and delighted to be here with you.
And we're delighted to have you. What an amazing story that's inside your bio there, and what an amazing influence you've had. Give us your .com so people can find you on the interwebs.
It is bookslauraleelindholm.com.
There you go. Lauralee, tell us a 30,000 overview of your book, Out of Darkness into Light.
It's the story of God doing again what he did in the book of Acts from the beginning, where they were living by law, by Orthodox laws. They had never read the Bible in a language they understood. And so all they knew was a whole lot of laws especially about fast days and kind of work they could do on religious holidays. And they didn't know anything about loving their neighbor or being honest or not committing adultery or any of those kind of things. And they were living in fear of evil spirits. And so when we found them, they were in a sad state.
And so you go through this journey of life there and help them. And you've been doing this for a lot of years. What made you focus on Ethiopia? What drew you to there when you first went, I think 50 years ago?
First, when we were missionaries, we went to teach in a high school in Nigeria. And at the end of our 3 years there, the area director came to our town and by accident had nobody meet him at the airport. And he called us and we got him, and he had just come from Ethiopia. And he said they wanted to start new work there and they wanted to do community development, which is really what my husband wanted to do. And they had a doctor and a vet and an agriculturalist, but they needed somebody to teach handcraft. And he said, I can do that. I like to do handcraft. And so we transferred from Nigeria to Ethiopia to begin brand new work in the mountains. And he taught rug weaving, and he'd never woven a rug in his whole life. But he said, if Navajos can weave rugs. I can weave a rug. So he read a book and watched a Navajo by the road and came to Ethiopia and taught rug weaving and did a great job of it.
Wow. That's I still haven't learned rug weaving. I need to pick up I need to learn some new things. Well, tell us about your upbringing and what influenced you. Were you born Christian? Was there something that influenced you to go down this road? What influenced you to want to become a missionary?
I was brought up going to Sunday school and church. I thank my family for that. And so was my husband, but we were in different churches in different areas. And as I got old enough to understand, a missionary came to our church from Nigeria and told about teaching there, and about the need and the response of the people, because they were so eager to learn. And so I got the vision then. But then I went on to high school and kind of got all into other things and off to college. And my husband had a similar experience. And so we eventually got married and went to Nigeria to teach in a high school. But Neil had this dream of helping rural people who had no other help and no other hope. And so that's why we went to Ethiopia.
Wow. And so it sounds like you kind of come from a spirit of giving and I guess sharing the gospel.
That's true. And I still believe that's the most important thing, the goal of my life. And publishing this book is still doing what we did in Africa. I want the story to get out to America. I want people to find out how God is working today with actual real people and details. And so that's why I wrote this book. When we got kicked out of Ethiopia due to communism, I sat down and for 3 months, I wrote down all the amazing things that have been happening. They were like photographed in my mind. And so it was easy to write. I remembered it all.
There you go. So when you first went to the highlands of Ethiopia, what did you find when you first traveled there? What was it like?
It was like the Wild West. They lived in simple mud huts with no electricity, no running water. They had very rudimentary farming methods, and they were dependent on rain. They didn't irrigate. So if it didn't rain, they starved. So I'm sure you've heard of famine in Ethiopia.
Oh, yeah.
And it's because they're dependent on rain. And the rain is fickle. Doesn't rain good every year. But when it does rain, it rains really hard for really long. And it's a muddy, hard place to live. Anyway, they were very, very simple people and very close to starvation. So that's why we sent a doctor, because they had a lot of sickness and no help, a vet, because they had animals. And when their animals got sick, it was a big loss to them. And then an agriculturalist to help them grow better crops.
Oh, wow.
And finally, handcraft, so that they could use the wool from their sheep. They ate meat, but they didn't have a good money crop for the wool. And so when the ladies spun that, they could not only sell the wool outside of Munns, but also use it in rug weaving. And my husband drew designs for beautiful patterns of Orthodox crosses, which have traditional designs. Each region has its own. And so they were lovely rugs, thick pile, and used lots of this yarn and made a lot of money for the people. And that really helped them.
And you helped them establish a marketplace for that, right? You guys would help get that stuff distributed and take it to market?
Yes. So we started a Thursday market. Every Thursday they came to clinic. Our doctor was there every Thursday. And then we had a rug market out in the yard. And my husband bought the rugs back from them that he taught them to make, because they had no way to market them in Munns. And the better they wove, the more money they got. And that's an amazing incentive. They got better and better and better. So the prices kept going up. And then we took them to the city, and there were several shops and things that would take them on consignment. And the women's club there had a big bazaar every month, and we sold a lot at the bazaar.
Wow.
A lot of foreigners, missionaries, embassy people, and so on wanted to buy them.
There you go. And so you created a market. You showed them how to build that. You showed them how to build their stuff. And so what was your goal doing this community development to help the people?
We wanted to show them that God loved them, and to just tell them if their lives didn't change in any way, they weren't very inclined to listen. Mm-hmm. But as they saw us spending our time and energy and money on helping them, along with, we really did love them, telling them about the Bible. We took Bibles in Amharic, and they had Bibles, but they were in Ge'ez, which nobody speaks anymore. It's a memorized language for the priests. And so nobody understood anything. They didn't know any Bible stories. And they were fascinated. We had Bible film strips. We plugged it into our car battery. And they were hand-drawn in color, people in long robes, out doing everything, sowing grain and herding sheep and doing all the same things they did. So they were very interested in those Bible stories.
There you go. So you're helping save their souls and also helping them teach them to have a thriving economy, local economy, and have health, and, take care of the basics, really. Running water and healthy water and all that good stuff. That's
the truth. Because if you love people, you want their lives to be good, to be healthy, not be sick, not be starving, not be poor, So we helped in every way we could. And some were really crazy ways, like when people died, we hauled the bodies on the top of our car to the place where they were going to bury them. And so we did whatever it was that they felt a need for.
There you go. I just have a funny picture of people being on top of a car. But, you got to do what you got to do when you're in these.
We had a Land Rover with a rack on top. It wasn't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, four-wheel drive. It wasn't a regular city car.
That's the instructions in my will that I get buried that way. I don't want a hearse. I want to be on the top of a Land Rover. And I want to be sitting up too, like I'm going on my last ride. So I want to be seated and maybe have my hands out like I'm holding the wheel. That's how I want to get driven to the cemetery. I like that. I'm going to add that to my will just to make it complicated for people. They're like, wait, what is he doing? There you go. So there's a story that you have in the book about you built your house to live in there, and then you decide to camp out in a tent after you built a house. Tell us a little bit about that story.
My husband taught handcraft in the handcraft school near our house. But after several years, we wanted to go help another area. And so we asked God to show us where. And 2 days later, a young man showed up, and he had been applied for a government job in the main town of Mahalmeda, and it took 2 months for them to decide whether to hire him or not. So he went to Bible studies at Dr. Kanada's for those 2 months and accepted Christ. He was the first one to really understand and believe. So he came walking to our house, which is a 5-hour walk, and then to his house, and he told us that if we came to the area he lived in, everybody would listen, everybody would learn, and everybody would believe. And we said, oh, you don't understand. We've already been here 5 years, and that hasn't happened. And he said, no, I'm sure they would. So he disappeared. 2 days later, he came back with a big, long piece of paper, numerous pieces of paper stuck together somehow, big, long paper with thumbprints and scribbled signatures and things, and he had 180 on it. And he said, all these people have promised to learn.
Wow.
We said, okay. And so that is how we decided to go to Kaya. And it was only a 2-hour drive away. But my husband brought gas from the city in barrels. And so we really rationed that. It was hard to get. It was expensive. And also 2 hours jiggling along over rocks and dirt and everything. To go 4 hours round trip is crazy. So we had a circus tent that a missionary had lived in earlier, and we also had a personal camping tent. So we took both and went down there and stayed 6 days a week for 3 years.
And here you have a house and you're living in a tent. There you go.
We came home once a week to have a bath and get more food, and it was a rug market day, and pray with the other missionaries who came to clinic, and so that was our touch with civilization, 1 day a week.
There you go. One day a week baths too.
That's it.
Whoa. All right. I'm a very sweaty, smelly guy.
Not at 11,000 feet. It was cold.
Oh, okay. Oh, there you go. Yeah, if you're freezing all the time, you're doing anything to conserve warmth. In fact, a kind of a layer or two of sweat can kind of help keep you warm. That's what I say during winter when I don't shower for a couple days. Don't do that, folks. Clean your skin. Actually, there's some people who say it's good for you. They say it's healthy for you to not maybe shower once or twice or every couple days because I don't know, it washes your stuff off. I don't know. It's on the internet. There's all sorts of people with weird stuff on the internet and ideas. So you talk about how your experience was like the book of Acts in the Bible. Tell us a little bit more about that because some people might not be familiar with that chapter of Acts.
Okay, and it's all the chapters of Acts, one after the other. So the very first one, we'd been there 6 years, and we were doing all this, helping them with their animals and everything, but that wasn't the only reason we were there. Mm-hmm. We wanted to let them be in the light, have happiness and joy, and get away from fear of the wiles of the devil. So anyway, we prayed for one church leader to really understand, and right away, a priest came and alone to ask questions in our tent, which no priest had done before. And he had a lot of questions. And when he went to priest school in the capital city, far away, the Pope had suggested they buy a Bible at the end. And he said, for some weird reason, he did. It cost $1.25, and annual income in Ethiopia at that time was $100. So that was a lot of money. But he bought a Bible, and he started trying to read it. But he couldn't understand it. He got bogged down, and there was nobody he could ask. And so he quit reading it. When we came, then we started a Bible study for priests and deacons on Sunday after their Mass, for only them, which meant they could let on that they didn't know anything. Because they all knew nobody else knew anything either. And so he said, I found these 10 laws, the 10 commandments. I didn't know they were there. And he said, we all break all of these. And he went through and was telling how they did. He said, some people even murder. They put poison under their thumbnail and put it in the communion cup and have killed people through church.
Jeez.
He didn't say he did, but other priests had. He said, our culture doesn't think these things are wrong. What we need to do is observe the fast rules of not eating meat on Wednesday or Friday and for 40 days prior to Easter. That's our main thing. And not working on religious holidays. And that's about 15 days a month. So it really does make it difficult for them. So long story short, he did really understand. He confessed his sins and got great joy in his life. And we said, thank you, God. We have the one person we asked for. That'll do. And 2 weeks later, he came back and said, I want to burn my magic books. And we said, what do you mean, your magic books? And he said, I'm the head wizard of this area. Didn't you know that? Almost all wizards are priests in their churches.
Wow.
And he brought his magic books, and we built a fire on Sunday at the time of our Bible study. And then he told people that he was turning only to Jesus for his support. And he threw his magic books in the fire. And somebody jumped up and said, no, I'll buy those from you. I'll pay you. And he said, you can't pay what these have cost in my life. And he didn't fish them out and sell them. And then everybody watched his life. They knew that Satan was going to get him, that his crops would fail, his wife would leave, his kids would get sick. Something bad would happen to him. But it didn't. God took good care of him, and he was a wonderful example of new life in Jesus.
There you go. Well, you definitely influenced some people. So what were you surprised about most about your life in the Orthodox Church?
As I alluded to, it was finding out that they have all these customs, like killing a cow to appease Satan, and everybody has to eat some of the meat.
We do that around here on Fridays.
and they don't often get meat. So to give this up, when they became true believers, other ones, and refused to do this, it was really a sacrifice on their part. They were really persecuted. And families killed a black lamb, a Beletew periodically, and that was to keep Satan away from their house. And everybody in the family had to eat some of it. And they said, this is wrong. We don't want to do this.
We did that on Thursdays.
Their families said, okay, you have to leave, move out. And they were just young men, late teens, early 20s. So this was hard for them to do.
Yeah.
And so we did not know until then how intertwined all of this was with the Orthodox Church.
Yeah. We do the black lamb killing on Saturdays around here, and then we get some of that good mint jelly. It's really good. That goes with lamb. Some lamb. Then we make gyros. We make Greek gyros out of them. It works. It works out well. Keeps Satan away. Keeps the stomach full. It's good. It's a good business. What else do we have? What are some of the long-term results of you working there? What was your experience? I know we talked in your bio about you going back, but what were some long-term results of all that work you did?
A group of believers grew, and that was wonderful. But communism came, and all the missionaries had to leave, and we wondered if they could continue on their own. They got expelled from the Orthodox Church, so eventually they started the Addis Kidan, which means, that's a word for New Testament, Baptist Church. Because before they lived by Old Testament laws. Now they lived by New Testament faith. And they left MUNs. The government picked the best students, which were our students, because when you become a believer, you get a new mind. It says you'll be a new creation. They were the best in their class. And so they were chosen to go to university. They were chosen to go and kind of like the Peace Corps, go around Ethiopia and do things like teach people to drill wells and to health classes and things. And so everywhere they went, they took their faith and started new groups of Bible studies and eventually churches. And so it started spreading at the hand of the government, sending them all over Ethiopia.
Wow. And so when you went back 50 years later, there was like 350, I forget the number, is 350 churches or something like that?
That's what there are now.
Wow.
We went back after 18 years when I retired from teaching ESL to kids in 1st through 5th grade. And we went back and wondered if they would still be there. And we found 12,000 of them at that time. And they asked us if we would work with them to encourage them. So we went there for 2 months. We rented a house. And we rented a house from a Muslim who had 2 wives. So he had 2 living quarters. So they had pastor training school in the living quarters of the second wife, because my husband only had 1 wife.
I guess you weren't going to let him get 2 then.
And so they chose leaders from each region where they had churches, and those leaders are still leaders today. They chose well. And that's where in the last 18 years, we started a bookstore in our house. People donate books to us and magazines, and volunteers have helped us in every way, keeping the computer going, checking maps to see if they have rips or spots or anything, and shelving books and shipping and all the things that are involved in a bookstore. And so for the last 18 years, we've been doing that. And eBay had a big contest in 2016, and I entered the charity division for Heart for Ethiopia bookstore, and we won. They flew us to Las Vegas and wined us and dined us on the stage, and we really got a boost, our bookstore did, at that time. And it's really helped. Everyone goes to Ethiopia. None of us are paid. And since it's in our house, we don't charge anything. And you can see behind me what a house full of books looks like.
Yeah, we can see that in the video. That's a whole lot of books. I love books. Books are really important. We love books on the Chris Voss Show, and authors too, that write the books. It's always important to have them as well. After you, and now the Heart of Ethiopia bookstore, you guys have sent back, what is it, 1.6 million, I think it was?
That's right.
There you go. And so it probably helps the members in the community too, so they can come there and give service to others and help out.
It's a win-win every way. When people give us their books, they say, oh, I feel so good that something good is going to come from my books. I don't just have to throw them in the trash. Because old books and old magazines are not that easy to sell or get rid of or even give away. So they feel happy who give. And then I feel happy when we get them and I see they're valuable, and our volunteers feel good who help. And then when we sell them, the people who buy them feel good that the money they're paying to buy these is going to help a charity in Ethiopia. And of course, when the money gets to Ethiopia, they feel good. So this is a win-win all the way through.
Win-win for everybody. We like win-wins. When you had to leave the Ethiopia during the Communist Revolution, what was it like? What was the experience like? You put all this love, sweat, blood, tears into, building your life there and changing these people's lives. What was it like having to leave?
It was like if you had to leave your own blood family. We had grown so close to them. And so we hated to leave. And we got to America, and they liked to study the Bible all day, every day. Everybody was so eager to learn the Bible. And we got back to America and found people were, they like to go to church on Sunday and maybe go to a prayer meeting once a week. But we didn't find this kind of eagerness. And then also, we were missing that family there, and we just didn't know what we were going to do, where we were going to belong, and bought a house, and we had jobs. And the house on the next block came up for sale for $15,000. And that seemed pretty cheap. And my parents had bought houses and used them as rentals and made some money. And they said real estate was a good way to go. So after we bought the first house, we bought the second and the third. And we eventually got 65 houses. And instead of renting them, we sold them to people. They were little cheap houses. Some were as cheap as $5,000, and top price was $25,000. We never bought anything expensive to resell. And then we sold them to the people, and we carried the notes. And we have never foreclosed on anybody, except one lady who died, and her relatives moved in, and for 2 years they didn't pay anything.
Oh,
but
wow.
it was not there. So we foreclosed on the relatives that we didn't even know.
Oh, wow.
But other than that, we refinance, we do everything we can to help people stay in their houses. So that's been a big help to us. We have steady income every month from that. And of course, a lot of them have gotten paid off by now, most of them. But it has gave us the money to go back to Ethiopia and help them for those 18 years.
There you go. You're doing an amazing job of charity work. You're changing the world, you're uplifting other people's lives, et cetera, et cetera. What advice would you give to people on, giving back and helping, doing service to others and helping charity work, et cetera, et cetera? I'm
living evidence that you can't outgive God. If you just are willing to do whatever God puts in your heart to do, and you got to look and pray a little about it, be listening, but then be brave. Go ahead and do it. Don't be afraid. God has your back, and He will help you, and it will bless your life. It will bless others, and there is no better way to live.
There you go. What else have we covered about your book that we should talk about?
There are a lot of amazing chapters. One, for example, we wanted them to learn about the power of prayer, because they never prayed an individual prayer asking God for something personal. Everything was memorized Mass. So we asked God to show them the power of prayer. And we went home from our little camping tent every week, as we said, to have a bath and get food. And the landowner provided a guard, and we went off and left our tent for one day a week. And the people all said, you should take it down and take it home. They're going to steal stuff. And we said, no, God's taking care of us. So one week when we came back, the guard was gone, the tent was open, and half the stuff was missing.
Oh.
And all the people pulled their hair and wailed and everything and said, now you're going to go away. We told you our people are bad. And so on. We said, no, it's okay. We're just trusting God. He'll take care of us. It's all right. So we did have to go back and get a little bit of stuff so we could keep staying there in the tent. And we did. And for 2 days, people we didn't even know came to us and said, we appreciate what you're doing. We can't believe that you're just trusting God. But after 2 days of rain every day, somebody came and said, we think we found your stuff. And so we got in the car and went a mile to the community grazing land, which was wide open. You could see for miles. And right out in the middle, in plain sight, were 3 bundles, 2 sleeping bags and my coat with all the stuff tied up inside. So we put it in our car and went back, and all the people were waiting at the tent. And we had made a list at their insistence of everything missing. So we started getting the stuff out of the bundles and checking it off the list. We got more back than we remembered we'd lost. And all the people said, God answers your prayers. You said he would, and he did. You have an in with God we don't have. And they got to see God at work answering prayer, just like we asked him to.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It's good that you do that. It's great that you set an example, that you've changed the world and made a difference in so many people's lives. I'm sure there's 350 churches. It must be thousands of people that you've affected. And it shows people that, you know, there's an old saying from Bobby Kennedy. It's from the Ripples of Hope speech. And he talks about how each of us can make a difference in this world and send forth a ripple of hope that changes the world. And each of us can make, in our small part, such a big difference. So I think you've done that. And I think that's wonderful that you have.
Thank you. And I do want to say, you don't have to go to Africa to do what God wants. We all have neighbors. We all have circles of influence in our job and in our friends. Bloom where you're planted.
There you go. Bloom. They're planted, folks. I love it. You know, there's all sorts of, there's people that are homeless that are nearby you. There's, if you watch, there's sometimes people are struggling, sometimes you just need to give them a hand up or just a pat on the back and say, hey, you okay, man? Maybe listen to some people from time to time. So this has been wonderful to have you on and talk about all these things, Lauralee. Give us your final thoughts for people to pick up the book and pitch out as we go out.
If you want an upbeat, encouraging, first-hand account of God working just like he did 2,000 years ago when Jesus left and the disciples were living out, trying to figure out what to do next. And God was with them step by step. And that's what this story is like. It compares it chapter by chapter with things that happened in Acts. You'll be excited and encouraged, and God will bless you if you buy this book, Out of Darkness into Light.
There you go. Give us a .com too, so people can find you on the interwebs.
Books, LauraleeLindholm.com.
There you go. Thank you very much, Lauralee, for coming to the show. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you. And thanks, Monis, for tuning in. Order up the book wherever fine books are sold. It's called Out of Darkness into Light, out February 27th, 2024. You can find it on Amazon or wherever fine books are sold. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, and all those crazy places on the internet. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time. And that should have